Hello, everyone. I am so excited for this special episode of Plug into Devin. I have got the greatest guest today. We've got with us Isaac Nuttall. He's a political activist who's passionate about holding politicians to account and increasing voter engagement. Isaac is a high school student in Utah County. Isaac, welcome to the show.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Well, the pleasure and thrill is all ours. Thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today. What do you want to talk about?
I would like to talk about holding politicians more accountable to the people, more to their constituents, and less to wealthy donors, but also how to increase voter turnout as a whole.
Great. How do we do it, Isaac?
How do we do it? I think that there are a host of different ways to do it, and I participate in student congress with debates, so I have proposed a solution around the idea of what Seattle does, where we give $100 in public money to every eligible voter in the United States in what's called democracy vouchers. And candidates who accept these vouchers agree not to accept any donations above $250. And I think that to a certain degree, people like Bernie Sanders have already employed this method of grassroots campaigning. But I think that by providing a much more easy avenue to grassroots campaigning instead of the typical avenue through wealthy donors, I think that that could help immensely. And we could do that by enfranchising every voter with democracy vouchers rather than a public grant. And that's why I really love that idea. And I never thought I'd agree with this man, basically the founder of the conservative movement, Mr. Barry Goldwater, but I agree with him fully when he said, "Our nation is facing a crisis of liberty if we do not control campaign expenditures. We must prove that elected office is not for sale. We must convince the public officials that they are what James Madison intended them to be, agents of the sovereign people, not the hired hands of rich givers." It's amazing. This really is such a bipartisan issue with campaign finance. Like, it's not divisive the way healthcare is or free college.
You know, one of my friends asked me a really hard question. And I'm going to ask you the hard question he asked me on this topic. And that is, some people have a wealth of fame that allows them great influence. How is that different from someone having a wealth of dollars and using that money to influence the political process?
Yes, and I think that that really does tie into the whole Citizens United idea of money equals free speech, which I vehemently disagree with. And I believe that there is a disparity of both a wealth of fame and a wealth of actual dollars. And while we can redistribute a wealth of dollars through measures like what I've just talked about with Seattle's method, I'm not quite sure you can really take away from a wealth of fame. I think that, unfortunately, it would take a lot and some very unclear measures in order to more equally distribute a wealth of fame. So I'm sorry, but I really do think that that's protected under the First Amendment.
Yeah, I agree with you. Isaac, you have a little bit of an interesting background. You've lived in lots of places, including India and Texas. How does that influence your perception of Utah politics?
Well, when I lived in India, especially, the caste system and just the brutal divide between the rich and poor, that was always very apparent to me. And before that, I lived in inner city Philadelphia, and it was a beautiful place where I got to live. I lived right next door to the Franklin Museum, but I also saw a fair amount of urban poverty, which was no less uncommon in India. So I've always been very aware to class distinctions. And now living here in a very nice 3-story house in Utah, surrounded by houses that are very alike, I'm thinking, wow, I'm living in luxury here. And everybody else thinks this is middle class. But we've really got to help those who have less than we do. So just the whole idea of class distinctions and me being very perceptive to that kind of thing it really was aroused my senses when I lived in places like India, where that was always brought to the forefront.
Yeah. Well, it is a fascinating situation. What else can we do to increase voter engagement in Utah? You pointed out to me before we started that Utah County has among the lowest voter participation rates in the state. What can we do to increase it?
I would say that one measure that we should absolutely do is make Election Day a federal holiday. I believe that by doing so, we would create a uniform standard across this country for voting. Only 22 states give voters paid time off to vote, while in other states, voters only have a few hours to get out to vote, which leads to long lines and inevitably some people not going out to vote. And there's data to prove this. According to a Census Bureau survey, 14% of voters simply could not cast a ballot because of work or other excessively filled schedules. So I think that making Election Day a federal holiday is absolutely one measure that we could use.
Well, that's a great idea. Great idea. I noticed, I think today, we're recording this on the 14th of April. I think just today, was it Virginia? Made it a state holiday. The Election Day will be a state holiday. So you're channeling the governor of Virginia today. So good. Well, Isaac, thank you so much for being with us today. Before you go, we answer just one last question. Tell us, what is your superpower?
I would say that my superpower is to clearly and concisely express my opinion while at the same time not necessarily making another feel as though their opinion does not matter. I believe that it is a relic of barbarism to shut another's opinion down without first recognizing it and seeing it through. I think that as a debater, I've looked at both the NSDA Code of Conduct as a way to form my own personal code of conduct, and developing a rapport while at the same time seeking the title of intellectual that seems to be a title that so many high schoolers and beyond reach for, while still developing that rapport with the common people. I think that that's such an amazing superpower. And obviously, I should still work to develop that. I have Asperger's syndrome, which is on the high side of autism. So social interaction has always been somewhat difficult for me. But I think that it's almost become a superpower because of how much I've had to work on it.
Well, you are amazing, Isaac. And as far as I can tell, you have a lot of superpowers. So we really appreciate you taking the time to be on the show today. We appreciate all of your work in advocating for freer and fairer elections. And we're grateful that you would take the time today to be with us. Do you have an online presence you want to tell us about before we go so people can follow you?
Well, at one point, I did have a YouTube channel called Ike's Political Minute. People can go to that, and I haven't posted videos for many months. Maybe I could soon.
Yeah. We need to get you back online, my friend. We need you back there. So you've got, your voice is too important to be lost. So get back on that, okay?
Oh, of course. Yeah, this interview is definitely making me consider becoming an active YouTuber again.
Good. I hope so. Isaac, thank you again very much for being with us today. We wish you every success in your efforts to make people more engaged in the political process.
Of course. Thank you so much for interviewing me. This was so amazing.
All righty. Let's do some good.
Absolutely.
I'm Devin Thorpe. For the last 8 years, I've been working full-time to eradicate extreme poverty, improve global health, and fight climate change. I've concluded that the best way for me to continue my work is to run for Congress to represent the people of Utah's 3rd District. In Utah, we have common shared values. Those things unite us. I believe passionately in our ability to come together, and I believe that working together, we can solve Utah's problems. I'm Devin Thorpe. I'm a Democrat. I'm running to represent the people of Utah's 3rd District. I'm Devin Thorpe, a candidate for Congress, and I approve this message.